In the Gemara on the bottom of Daf Gimel Amud Beis, the last two lines. The Gemara is speaking about the rain, snow, and different things, and the benefit that they bring for the world. So the Gemara V'Omar Rav Talge L'Turi, snow is beneficial on the mountains, where usually the rain flows down, so it doesn't stay there, but the snow is good, it stays there on the mountains. Mitra Razia Li'Loni, when you have strong rain, it's good for the trees. For them to grow, they need strong rain. Mitra Nicha, when you have a lighter rain, Leperi, that's good for fruits, or actually the peri over here refers to the tvua, to the grains. Urpila, when you have a very light rain, so that afilu partsida de tusi kala. What that's good for is when you have the seeds that are very close to the surface, they're planted, the seeds are right below the earth, and over there this light rain enters in through the cracks and it helps these seeds start growing. So again, afilu lepartzide, the tusikale mahanya, those seeds that are right below the earth, it helps for it. Mai urpila, what does this word urpila mean? Uru pili, wake up the cracks in the ground, meaning that it enters into those cracks and it helps the things the seeds that are there grow. Amar Rave, in connection to this, Rav also said, Hi, tzur b'mirabanan, this young Talmud Chacham. Dami lepartzide the tusi kala. They're compared to these seeds that are right below the earth. The kivin, the novat, once he sprouts out, novat, he's able to sprout and grow greater and greater, which means that the original breakout for the seeds to come out of the ground, so that takes a certain kayach to force out, to come out from below the earth. But once he breaks out from under the earth, he's able to grow greater and greater. So the same thing also with a Talmud Chacham. When he begins learning, the initial breakthrough is difficult, but then once he is able to understand Torah and he's able to grow greater and greater. Rav also said, a young Talmud Chacham that becomes angry. He has a rasach, he's angry. So should know that that really it's the Torah that he learned that's in him that brings him to become angry. So Rashi here explains that when he learns Torah, it brings him a broadness in his heart, and therefore from his Torah he pays attention to things that other people don't pay attention to, and therefore this is something that can cause him to be angry about different things that he sees. And the Gemara brings a source for this, that the words of Torah are compared to fire. So the fire of Torah brings about a fire and an anger in the heart of a Talmud Chacham. So of course the Mefarshim will speak about this. What does this mean, that a Talmud Chacham becomes angry? What's this inyan of anger by a Talmud Chacham? So obviously we're talking over here about anger that's being used in a positive way. So, Lamashal, what it says, Zreik Mara b'Talmidim, that sometimes for Talmidim you have to show the discipline and to show anger for things that are being done inappropriately and so on. Ravashi said, called Talmud Chacham, she'ena kosher kabarzel. A Talmud Chacham that's not tough like a piece of iron, ain't a Talmud Chacham. He's not a Talmud Chacham. Shenemat ukepatish yifutze sela, like an iron hammer that can smash even a rock. So this is going, and over there further in the pasuk it speaks about learning Torah. Right, so it's a conclusion of that previous pasuk, right? Kaidvare ke'esh, which refers to Torah. So you see that a Talmud Chacham has to be strong like an iron, like a hammer. Amalei Rababa Ravashi. So Rababa says to Ravashi about this. Atun mehosam asnitula. You learned it out from that pasuk of Kepatish Yifutz Tzela. Anan me'acham asninala. I learned it out from a different pasuk. The pasuk says, Eretz asher avonea barzel. A land which even the rocks in it are tough and are hard like iron. So it says Avonel, it's referring to the rocks in Eretz Yisrael. Al tikri Avonel, don't read it as Avonel regarding the rocks, elo boineha, the ones that build the land, which refers to the Talmidei Chachamim that learn Torah, and they have to be tough like Barzel. So Ravina says, even though this is true, that there is an inyan of anger by a Talmud Chacham that can be used in the positive way, and also the strength that a Talmud Chacham uses, like iron, that it's also used in the positive way. But nevertheless, a person should train himself, he should become accustomed to being more calmer and teaching in a more calmer way without anger, without being so tough. Should remove anger from your heart. Even this anger that it says over here regarding a Talmud Chacham. There are three individuals that asked for something in an inappropriate way. But for two of those, So even though they asked inappropriately, but the Eibishter sort of responded to them. The Eibishter made it happen to them in a way that was appropriate. But one of them, the Eibishter made things happen for him, and it was inappropriate because of what he asked inappropriately. And these are the three individuals: Eliezer, Eved Avram, Eliezer, the servant of Avram, V'Shaul ben Kish, this is Shaul HaMelech, and V'Yiftach HaGoladi. So what happened to these three individuals? Eliezer, Eved Avram, so what did he ask inappropriately? The Chsiv, the Pasuk says that V'Haya Hanara. So Eliezer, when he arrives to Charan, he says that it'll be the maid, Asher Omer Elel Hatin Nokadich V'Goyme, if she will come and say, give me a jug and I'll serve you, I'll give you to drink water, so I'll know that that's the right kala for Yitzchak. So now, once he said this, so this could be even if she's someone that's limping or even someone that's blind. He said whoever is going to be the girl that's going to do this, and that's going to be the sign. So the sign that he made was sort of inappropriate. But Eshivu Ka'egen, when the Eibishter responded, the Eibishter brought the girl out for him, it was the right one. V'nizdamna lo Rivka, and Rivka is the one that came, and that's the one that was for Yitzchak. Shaul ben Kish, and Shaul ben Kish said something also that was inappropriate. The Chsiv, the Pasuk says, V'aya isha sheyakenu, the one that will go and kill Goliath, Yashrenu HaMelech Oisha Gadol, the king will make him very rich, Ve'ezbita yitn loy, and I will marry off my daughter to him as well. So now when he said that, he shouldn't have said so. Why? Because Yachal Afila Evet, Afila Mamze, anybody that's going to come and kill Goliath. It could end up being even Evet Kanani or even a Mamzer, and he's going to have to marry off his daughter to him. But in the end, the Eibishter responded and made it happen in an appropriate way. V'nizdamah loy David, and David HaMelech is the one that killed Goliath. The third person, and over here the Eibishter did not make it happen in a good way, was Yiftach HaGoladi. Yiftach, and when he went out to fight war, the Chsiv, and then he said, V'hoya, and if the Eibishter is going to make me victorious here, so V'hoya ha'yotza sheyetzim yidalse beisi v'goyme. It'll be the first thing that will come out from the door of my house when I come back home. So the pasuk that continues and says that he said that V'hoya l'Hashem v'aliseo oila. I'm going to bring it as a carbon oila. That's what he said. The first thing that comes out of my house. Now he didn't know what's going to come out of his house first. I would think that includes even if a non-kosher tame animal comes out of his house, he'll also bring it as a carbon. So he shouldn't have said so. And Eshiva Shalaika Haikin. And the Eibishter answered and made it happen in an inappropriate way. What happened? Who was the first one that came out of his house? His daughter came out of his house. And he made this neder, and now he had to fulfill his neder. So the Mefarshim, there's a machlekes in Mefarshim what he actually did. Some actually say that he did bring her as a carbon oila. That's what it says. Others say that he separated her and he secluded her and he kept her l'Hashem, so to speak, and she never got married. But he had a problem over here. He made this neder. So now the Gemara says, Yisrael, in connection to what Yiftach said, this is what the Navi says to Yidden regarding over there in Gilad, Hatsari aim begilad. Is there no tsari? Is there no vitamins or medication in the city of Gilad? Is there no doctor there? So as Rashi here brings from the Medrash, what is this pasuk saying? What this pasuk is saying is, he made a neder. So why doesn't he go to a chacham and be matir his neder? So Rashi, Taisus both bring that he was in the times of Pinchas. Pinchas was living in the city of Gilad as well. Elama, Yiftach was a balgaiva. Yiftach said, I'm going to go down to Pinchas to go be matir my neder. And on the other hand, Pinchas didn't want to go to him either, to help him be matir his neder. So Yiftach didn't go to Pinchas didn't go to Yiftach, so he ended up not being matir his neder. And that's what the pasuk is saying. I don't understand. There's no doctor. In other words, there's no chacham that you can go to over here to be matir your neder. Why aren't you doing this? So this is in connection to this story with Yiftach. Uksiv, there's another pasuk that says that also in connection to this story. Asheloi tzivisi v'loi dibarti v'loi olsa libi. The Eibishter says this is something I never commanded, I never spoke about this, and it didn't enter into my heart. What is it referring to? Asheloi tzivisi ze benoi shel Misha melech Moav. This is a story with the king of Moav that was also fighting a war, and he says to the Eibishter, if you're going to help me be victorious, then I'm going to sacrifice my son for you. So as a Peshanema, as it says, that this king of Moav took his son the Bechor that would have been a king instead of him, and he brought him as a carbon oila. sacrificed him. So the Eibishter is saying, I never commanded to do such a thing. And then when the pasuk says V'loidi barti, the Eibishter says, I didn't say this. Also a similar thing. Zeh Yiftach. This is regarding Yiftach when his daughter came out and he said he's going to bring his daughter for a carbon. The Eibishter is saying, I never said to do such a thing. And also V'lo Yolsa Libi, that didn't enter my heart. This is Yitzchak ben Avram. This is regarding Yitzchak ben Avram. And by that Kedah, and the Eibishter says, V'alei Sham La'ila, it never entered the Eibishter's heart that he should actually sacrifice him as a carbon, as it says there in the Psukim, as Rashi brings there. Rashi brings here as well, that all the Eibishter said is, bring him on the Mizbeach, but then after you brought him on the Mizbeach, you can take him down. Rabrechye said, and this is... we had over here the three individuals, and now the Gemara says, Af Knesses Yisrael Shal Shaloika Hagen. So also, when it comes to Yidden, and this goes on La'asad Lavai, so the Yidden ask something that's Shaloika Hagen, that they shouldn't be asking for. V'HaKadosh Baruch Hu Heshiva Kahagen. But the Eibishter will respond and answer them in the appropriate way. So what is this referring to? And here this is connected to the Inyan of rain. That's why this whole thing was brought here. Shenema, the Pasuk says, and La'asad Lavai, V'neida, and we'll know the Eibishter, and V'nirdafa, and we'll run. Near the fall will run Ladas Hashem to know the Eibishter Keshachar Nochain Maitzoi, like the morning star that comes up, and you know that it's going to become light and the sun is going to come up. And V'yavai Kegeshem Lanu, and the Eibishter is going to come and be revealed to us like rain. So when the Yidden compared the revelation of the Eibishter to rain, so that was something that they made a mistake. Amalak Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Eibishter says to Yidden, Biti, my daughter, at sheyeles davar, you're asking something, you're comparing the revelation of the Eibishter to rain, shepa'amim mizbakesh. Sometimes rain is something that people ask for, it's a good thing, but upa'amim einim mizbakesh. Sometimes rain is something that you don't want, as we learned before, when it comes after the month of Nisan, so then it's not a positive time for rain. But I will come and be revealed to you like something which is that you need and want forever. It's always the appropriate time for it. Shenema, as the pasuk says, Eye katal Yisrael. The Eibishter says, I will be like the dew that comes every day, and it's always something that's needed and that's beneficial. That's how the revelation of the Eibishter will come down to you. Another thing that the Yidden asked and they used an analogy that was not the right analogy. Amra Lefanav, the Yidden say to the Eibishter, Ribono shel olam, Master of the universe, say money kechaisem alibech. Place me like a seal, like a seal that's on your heart, and kechaisem al zrayacha, and like a chaisim that's on your arm. So that this is how the Eibishter, the Yidden are asking from the Eibishter that he should remember the Yidden. Some like Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Eibishter answers to this. Biti, my daughter, at sheyeles davar, you're asking for something. Shepamim nire, upamim meini nire. Sometimes it's exposed, and sometimes you can see it, and sometimes you can't see it because it's a seal that's there in the heart, or it's on your arm, so that's under your garments, and so you can't even always see it. And therefore, the Eibishter is not always going to remember this. But the Eibishter says, I will place Yidden, I will put the Yidden to remember them in a place that I'll always be exposed to see. Shenema, as the pasuk says, Hein al kapayim chakaisicha. The Eibishter says that I've engraved the Yidden on the palms of my hand, which is always exposed for the Eibishter always to remember and to see the Yidden. Going back to the Mishnah, what did it say in the Mishnah? Ein shoyel ines hageshamim. So the Mishnah there said that you don't ask for rain ela samich legeshamim, only near the time when we need the rain. So what is this referring to? This, in other words, this means after Sukkot. On Sukkot we don't want the rain, so we don't ask for the rain until the time when we need the rain, which is after Sukkot. So now the Gemara says savrua. In the beginning they thought shaila v'haskara chodem milsihi. When you talk about asking for rain and you talk about mentioning the rain in davening, it's the same thing. So therefore the Gemara says, Man Tana. Who's the Tana that says that you ask for the rain near the time when you need the rain, which is at the end of Sukkot? Rabbi Yeshua. This goes according to Rabbi Yeshua. When you put away your lulav and then Shmini Atzeres, that's when you mention Mashav Ruach Amayred Ageshem, and that's the same time. That's what the Mishnah means when it says Shaila, that it also means to mention the rain and to ask for the rain starting from that time. Abaye said, no, you could even say that this line in the Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Eliezer that says that you mention rain, you say Mashav Ruach already from the first day of Sukkot, because Shaila L'chod, Vaskara L'chod. Asking for the rain, which is the same Talamot L'vracha, and mentioning Mashav Ruach and Mered Agashim are two separate things. And even Rabbi Eliezer says that you say Mashav Ruach on the first day of Sukkot, but the same Talamot you start after Sukkot. Amri, Others said the same discussion, but in a slightly different version. Leimer Rabbi Yeshua. Shall we say that the Mishnah that says that you ask for the rain at the end of Sukkot is Rabbi Yeshua? The Omar Mishas Chasei that says you only ask for the rain when you put down the lulav at the end of Sukkot. Rava, and Rava answers, no, Afilatayim Rabbi Eliezer. The Mishnah can follow Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. Shailu luchot v'askara luchot. Asking for the rain and mentioning the rain is two different things. Okay, so it's basically the same thing, a slight difference over here. The only difference is, before it said savrua, that they thought that shayla and askara is the same thing. And over here it's saying that he was questioning, is this only Rabbi Yeshua? In other words, he understood l'chatchila that they're not exactly the same thing, but he still thought that the halacha for the shayla and askara should be the same. And he explained, no, they're not the same. Rabbi Eliezer says that the shayla is after Sukkot and the askara is in the beginning of Sukkot. So the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda says, that so Rabbi Yehuda said that the one that davens for the Yomad on Shmini Atzeres, so Shachris, you're still saying the same. You're still saying Moed Datol, and then when you come to Musaf, that's when you say Mashavruach Amer Geshem, right? And then it said further, until when do you say Mashavruach Amer Geshem? Until the first day of Pesach, and again Shachris, you're still saying Moed Geshem, and then when it comes to Musaf, that's when you say Moed Datol. Frag the Gemara v'Raminu, I'll ask you a contradiction on what Rav Yehuda said here. It says, Nabraise, ad masai shoyel nesagishamim. Until when do you ask for rain? Rabbi Yehuda says, ad sheyaver Pesach. Until the end of Pesach. Not the first day of Pesach, but till the end of Pesach. Rav Meir says, ad sheyaver Nisan. Until the end of Nisan. So now, even though this Braise uses the term shoyelin, which means saying the same talamotar, but at this point the Gemara is thinking that the she'ela, saying the same talamotar, and mashav ruach, mentioning, is the same thing. So if so, Rabbi Yehuda said in our Mishnah that you only say till the first day of Pesach, Musaf, and over here in the Braisi is saying until the end of Pesach. Rav Chisda answers, like Kashi, there's no contradiction here, because Kan Lishol, the Braisa is speaking about to ask for the rain, to say the same talamotar, and that you say the entire Chalamayah till the end of Pesach. And Kan Lahaskir, our Mishnah is speaking about saying Ma'ashavruach Amer Geshem, and that you stop at the first day of Pesach. So as he explains it, Mishal Vishal V'Azil, so you continue asking for the rain, the same talamotar, so that he continues going the whole Chalamayit. But Lahaskir B'Yom Tefirishim Pasik, but to mention Ma'ashavruach Geshem, that you already stop on the first day of Pesach. This was Rav Chisda's answer. So Ula says about this answer, this answer that Rav Chisda just said here, Kashya is difficult, k'chaymitz l'shinayim, like vinegar for teeth, which is not good for the teeth, or ka'ashan l'einayim, and like smoke that's not good for the eyes. In other words, it's not a good answer at all, and he explains why not. Uma b'mokim shein shoyel. If, when it comes to the beginning, when you start saying Moed Geshem, and you're not yet asking for the rain, you first start to mention, so b'mokim shein shoyel, you're still not asking for the rain. Maskir, you already begin mentioning Moed Geshem at the beginning of Sukkot or in the end of Sukkot before you're even asking for it. B'mokim sheshoyel, so if it's a time where you're still asking for the rain, if you're going to tell me that Chalamayit Pesach, you're still asking for the rain, ein edin sheyei maskir, you for sure should still be mentioning about the rain. We see that you ask for the rain, you see that you mention the rain more than just asking for it. So for sure, if you're still asking for the rain, you should be mentioning Mashav Ruach Amer Geshem. So this is not a good answer over here. So the Gemara says, Ela Amar Ula. So therefore, Ula answers and says, Trei Tanoi Aliba de Rabbi Yehuda. That we're going to have to say that there's a machlokes here. There's two different Tanoim regarding what Rabbi Yehuda's opinion really is. Okay, so even though in the Mishnah it's talking about Haskara, saying Moed Geshem, and in the Braisa it's talking about Shoyelin, about saying Talamotar, but over here you can't say that you continue asking for rain past the time that you mentioned the rain. So it has to be two different Tanoim. Rav Yosef Amar, now Rav Yosef tries to give an answer to say that it's not two different Tanoim. Mai at sheyavera Pesach. In the Braisa, when it says at sheyavera Pesach, what does that expression mean? So until now we understood it means until the whole yontiv of Pesach passes. So he says no, that's not what it means. At sheyavar shliach tzibur rishon hayered b'yontiv rishon shel Pesach. That you continue saying the same talamotar until the first shliach tzibur that goes and davens and shachris on the first day of Pesach. That's until when you say the same talamotar. That's what it meant. But it's not referring to the whole Yom Tov of Pesach. So therefore, it's the same exact thing, like he said in the Mishnah. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye asks on this answer of Rav Yosef, how could you say this? She'ele b'yontif mi ikke? Do you say the same talamotar on Yontif? You're saying that until the first Shliach Tzibur in the morning on Pesach, when he's going to finish davening, that's until when you say the same talamotar. But you don't say the same talamotar in the Shmei Nesra of Yontif. Amalei, so Rav Yosef answered, you do say the same talamotar, even if you don't say it in davening, but shoyel meturgimen. There's a meturgimen that used to give the drasha, or used to explain the drasha, so in his drasha, he would also say a tefillah, and in his tefillah, he would say the same talamata. So it's not in the nusach of Shmei Nasra, but the meturgimen in his tefillah that he would say, he would mention the same talamata, and that's what it's going on. So the Gemara says, no, but that also doesn't make sense. V'chi meturgimen shoyel davar she'ein tzarich letzibur. Is the meturgimen going to say a tefillah and mention the same talamatar in his drasha, something that the tzibur doesn't need anymore, something that the tzibur is not mentioning anymore, already from the day before Pesach? Erev Pesach is the last time you say the same talamatar, and already Ma'ariv and Shachris, you're not saying the same talamatar anymore. So why would the meturgimen say the same talamatar? So Ella machvarte kedola. The right answer has to be like Ulla said, that you have two opinions according to Rabbi Yehuda, and we can't reconcile these two things over here. It's two different opinions. Rabba also tries to answer and explain that there shouldn't be a contradiction between the two opinions of Rabbi Yehuda. And Rabba says, "My achiyavara Pesach." What did it mean in the Braisa when it said that you continue shoyelin, you say the same talamatar until the end of Pesach? What this means is achiyavar zman shchitas Pesach. This means until you finish the time of the shchita of the Pesach, which refers, of course, to Erev Pesach. That you say the same talamatar, the last time you say it is by mincha on Erev Pesach. And what's the chiddush over here? Like the beginning, when you start saying Masha v'ruach u'mayred hageshem, so too it is in the end when you finish saying Masha v'ruach u'mayred hageshem. What's the comparison? Just like in the beginning, when you begin saying Masha v'ruach u'mayred hageshem, maskir, so you start saying this, you begin saying Mayred hageshem on Sukkot, whether the first day, whether the last day, on Shmini Atzeres, so you begin saying it even though you're not yet saying the same talamata. You don't say the same talamata until the next weekday. So too when it comes to the end, when you stop saying Masha v'ruach u'mayred hageshem, maskir afal pishein shoyel. So you're going to stop saying the same talamatar on Erev Pesach, but then you continue saying Masha v'ruach u'mayred hageshem, the next Ma'ariv, the next Shachris, and you don't stop until the next Musaf. So therefore you see that you continue saying Masha v'ruach u'mayred hageshem even past saying the same talamatar. And that's what the Braisa meant. So it's the same thing, like what Rabbi Yehuda said in our Mishnah. So the Gemara now asks on this answer as well. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye says to Rabbe, it's well understood in the beginning, maskir, so over there you ask, or not ask, sorry, over there you mention, and you say, Masha v'ruach u'mayred hageshem, even before you begin asking, even before you begin saying the same talamatar. So what's the reason for this? So the Bach says, Dehaskare nami ritzui she'elehi. Because the point of coming and praising the Eibishter for the fact that he brings rain is sort of appeasing the Eibishter before you're then going to come and ask for the rain. So it makes sense to first praise the Eibishter for the fact that he gives rain, and then later, a day later, or whatever while later, you're going to come and say the same talamata. But then when it comes at the end, when you stop saying Masha v'ruach u'mayred hageshem, what's the point of continuing to say Masha v'ruach u'mayred hageshem after you're not saying the same talamatar anymore? You're not asking for the rain anymore. You don't need the rain anymore. So why are you continuing to say Masha v'ruach u'mayred hageshem, praising the Eibishter for the rain? Praise in the beginning is preparing for the bakasha, but at the end there's no reason to say Mayred hageshem after you're not asking for it anymore. So Ella, again the Gemara concludes, Machvarte Kedola. The best answer is like Ulla said before, that there are two opinions there according to Rabbi Yehuda, and there's a machlokes. So the Gemara now, what's the actual halacha? Amar Avasi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, halacha ke Rabbi Yehuda. We paskin like Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah, that is that you begin saying Masha v'ruach u'mayred hageshem on Shmini Atzeres, by the Musaf of Shmini Atzeres. Amalei Rab Zera l'Ravasi, so Rab Zera asks Ravasi, Omi Amar Rabbi Yochanan hachi. Did Rabbi Yochanan say that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda? V'tanan, but we learned in the Mishnah, and this is later in the Mishnah, it says, B'shloisha b'mar cheshvan, shoylin es hakeshamim. It's on the third day of Cheshvan that you begin asking for the rain. Rabbi Gamliel loime b'shiva bay. Rabbi Gamliel says you ask for the rain on the seventh day of Cheshvan. And V'omer Rabbi Elazar says regarding that Mishnah, halacha ke Rabbi Gamliel, that we paskin like Rabbi Gamliel, which means that you begin asking for the rain on the 7th day of Cheshvan. So now the Gemara is asking a contradiction here, that in our Mishnah it says that when do you say Mashav Ruach Omer da Geshem on Musaf of Shmini Atzeres, and here it says that you ask for the rain on Zayin Cheshvan. Now, of course, the Gemara is assuming over here, like it did a few times before, that asking for the rain and mentioning the rain goes together. So if it goes together, we have a contradiction here. So the Gemara first says two answers. First of all, the Gemara says, Omalei gavre karamis. You're asking over here a contradiction from one Amayra to another Amayra. Rabbi Yochanan said that Allah is like Rabbi Yehuda. And you're asking a question from who? From Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar said that Allah is like Rabbi Gamliel, that you begin asking for the rain on Zayin Cheshvan. How could you ask a contradiction from Rabbi Elazar to Rabbi Yochanan? So the Mefarshim say the reason why he had this svara to ask this contradiction, it's so obvious that it's not the same person, is because Rabbi Elazar was a Talmud of Rabbi Yochanan. So the Gemara was sure that Rabbi Elazar wouldn't argue with his teacher. But nevertheless, the Gemara says, no, it could be that he had a different opinion. He by saying another answer, like we already said before, Loi Kashir, there's no question here. Kan Lisha, Kan Lahaskir. There's a difference if you're asking for rain, and that you begin only in Zayin Cheshvan, or if you're mentioning that the Mashav Ruach Omer da Geshem, and that you start mentioning before, already on Shmini Atzeres. Zok the Gemara, but there's not. Here we see that according to Rabbi Yochanan, the asking for the rain and the mentioning the rain go together. Rabbi Yochanan said, "B'makim sheshoyel masker." In the time that you ask for the rain, you also mention, you say Mashav Ruach Omer da Geshem. It goes together. So you can't differentiate between the two. So the Gemara answers, Hahu lav soke. When he said that, he was only saying it when it comes Erev Pesach. When you stop saying the same Talamatar, you also stop saying Mashav Ruach Omer da Geshem. In other words, according to Rabbi Yochanan, already the Ma'ariv of Pesach, the first night of Pesach, you don't say Mashav Ruach Omer da Geshem anymore. When you stop the same Talamatar, that's when you stop Mashav Ruach. But not when you start. When you start, you do start Mashav Ruach Omer da Geshem before the same Talamatar. So that's only lav saki itmer. Fragt the Gemara, but v'omer Rabbi Yochanan, in another place Rabbi Yochanan clearly spelled out, hischil haskir, maschil Israel. When you start saying Mashav Ruach Omer da Geshem, that's when you start asking for the rain and you say the same Talamatar. It goes together. Pasak milisha, when you stop saying the same Talamatar, Pasak milahaskir, you stop mentioning Mashav Ruach Omer da Geshem. So you see that according to Rabbi Yochanan's opinion, these two do go together. You can't differentiate between the haskara and the sheila. So therefore the Gemara gives a different answer. Elaloi kashye, so rather the answer over here is halon haluhu. There's a difference between the people in Bavel and the people in Eretz Yisrael. For the people in Bavel, they start asking for the rain and saying Mashav Ruach Omer da Geshem at a later date, whether it's Zayin Cheshvan or Gimel Cheshvan. But the people in Eretz Yisrael, they start earlier on. And the Gemara explains, so Maishna, what's the difference? Lididon, so what's the difference for us? Why don't we start Lididon, the Islan Pedi, Bedabre? So we have the fruits, we have the produce that's out in the field, right? So because of the produce that's out in the field. So therefore, we don't want to say Mashav Ruach Omer da Geshem early on, in order that the rain shouldn't come so early. Lididhu nami isluhu, so the people that are in Bavel, they also have the produce that's in the field. Again, let me repeat that one more time. Ma'ishna lididon. What's the difference that us people here in Bavel, that is, not us people in Eretz Yisrael. Us people in Bavel, the Islan Peri Bedabra. We have the produce that's out in the field, and therefore we don't want to start saying Mashav Ruach Omer da Geshem or the same Talamatar early on because of the produce that's in the field. Lididhu nami isluhu. So they also have the produce that's in the field. Lididhu nami islu oile regalim. They also, even if they don't have the peiros in the field, but they have another issue. They have the oile regalim that are going up to Eretz Yisrael, and therefore they don't want to mention the rain that should come early enough in order that the oile regalim are going to get stuck in the rain. So they should also only start saying Mashav Ruach Omer da Geshem and saying Talamatar later on. So the Gemara answers, you're right. Ki ka'omer Rabbi Yochanan bizman she'en beis hamikdash kayim. When Rabbi Yochanan over here has made this distinction, when we're saying over here that there's a difference between lon and lahu, so for the people in Eretz Yisrael, that they can start saying Mashav Ruach Omer da Geshem earlier on, that's talking about in the time when there's no beis hamikdash and there's no issue with the oile regalim. So the Gemara says, so if so, if you're saying it's talking about the time when the Beis Hamikdash is not standing, so we could say that both statements of Rabbi Yochanan, whether you start saying Mashav Ruach Amar de Geshem earlier, and then this that he said that you start saying it later, only when you say the same Talamatar, they're both talking about Eretz Yisrael. V'lekashi, and there's no question. Kam bizman shebeis hamikdash kayim, kam bizman shebeis hamikdash kayim. In the time when the Beis Hamikdash is standing, so for the Oilei Golim, they didn't want to start saying it earlier, and when the Beis Hamikdash is not standing, so there's no Oilei Golim, so they started saying Mashav Ruach Amar de Geshem earlier on. Okay, so now the Gemara, this is the conclusion over here in our sugya. So over here we're talking about the union of the Saint Talamatar and Mashav Ruach Amar de Geshem. So here it says that the Saint Talamatar, you're passing like Rabbi Gamliel, that you say it in Zayin Cheshvan. But we're going to have later in the Gemara on Daf Yud, that for people in Chutzlar, that's in Bavel, we actually don't start saying it in Zayin Cheshvan, even though that's what it's mashma the Gemara here, that Lididon, you start saying it in Zayin Cheshvan, but the Gemara is later going to bring that you start saying it 60 days after the Tekufa of Tishrei, like we do today. We'll see Mitzvah on Daf Yud. Okay, the Gemara continues and says, Vanan the Islam Treyome. Now, according to us, going back over here, we passing like Rabbi Yehuda, right? That he begins saying Mashav Ruach Amar de Geshem on Shmini Atzeres by Musaf time. But now for us, there's a second day of Yom Tif. We have Simchas Torah. So Heichi Avdinon. So when do we begin saying Mashav Ruach Amar de Geshem? What do we do? It's a Sveika de Yome. So do we begin on Shmini Atzeres or do we begin on Simchas Torah? Amarav, so Rav says Maschil b'Musafin. You start saying Mashav Ruach Amar de Geshem by Musaf of Shmini Atzeres, and then Upaisik b'Mincha. But then when it comes Mincha time, so you can't say, you don't say anymore because maybe it's not really yet the day you're supposed to say. Maybe it should be tomorrow. And the same thing also Arvis, Shachris, and my Ma'ariv and Shachris. You also go back to say Ma'ariv Datal. And then v'chayzer b'musafin, and then you come back Musaf of Simchas Torah the next day. You start saying Mashav Ruach Amar de Geshem again. That's what Rav said. Amalu Shmuel, so Shmuel said, Pukuv Amri Leila Abba, go tell Abba, which was the name of Rav, Achasha Sisei Kaidesh, after you made this day holy. So Taseyu Chayil, now you're going to consider it to be a day, a mundane, a weekday. Once you already sanctified the day of Shmini Atzeres, and you began mentioning already Mashav Ruach Amar de Geshem on this day, it doesn't make sense to say that on the mincha of that day you should treat it like chayil and go back to saying Meirid Atal.
Shaila is only about mincha.
Right, correct. He's asking about mincha. So Elohim Shmuel. So therefore Shmuel says Maschil b'Musafin ube mincha. So Shmini Atzeres, because you're treating it like Kaidish already, that this is a Yantiv, so therefore you start saying Mashav Ruach Amar de Geshem. And then by Mincha as well you say Mashav Ruach Amar de Geshem. But then Upaisik Arvis for Shachris. And then the Ma'ariv of Simchas Torah and the Shachris of Simchas Torah, then you go back to saying Ma'ariv Atal. V'chayzer u'maschel b'Musafin. And then you start again saying by Musaf again Mashav Ruach Amar de Geshem. Rav Amar, a third opinion, Rav says, Kivin shehischel, once you started saying on Shmini Atzeres Mashav Ruach Amar de Geshem, Shuvene Paisik. You don't stop saying Mashav Ruach Amar de Geshem anymore. V'chein Amar Rav Sheishes, Kivin shehischel Shuvene Paisik. Once you began, you don't stop. V'af Rav Hodebei. And even Rav that said before that by the Mincha, Ma'ariv and Shachris, you don't say, so he also had Charata of what he said before, Domer of Chanan al Amarav, Mayne Esrim ve'echad Yom, you count 21 days from after Rosh Hashanah, Kederach Shemayne Asar Yamim Rosh Hashanah Ad Yom Kippurim, like you count 10 days from Rosh Hashanah until Yom Kippur, Umaschil, and then after 21 days after Rosh Hashanah, that's when you begin saying Mashav Ruach Amar de Geshem, and the Kivin Shehischil, once you began saying Shuv Eina Paisik, you don't stop saying Mashav Ruach Amar de Geshem anymore. And the Hilchase, this is the halacha, Kivin Shehischil, once you began saying Mashav Ruach Amar de Geshem, Shuv Eina Paisik, you don't stop saying Mashav Ruach Amar de Geshem anymore.